We are asked to round decimal 417 to the nearest hundredths. What I can do is I can place decimal 417 on my decimal place value chart so that I know which number I'm rounding and which number is my neighbor number. So decimal symbol goes between the ones and the tens. Then I write my 4 right after the decimal symbol. My 1 right after the 4. So that means that the 1 will fall under the hundredths place value. And then my 7, which will fall under my thousandths place value. Okay, now go to my steps, find the place to round. Okay, so what are they asking me? To round the number to the nearest hundred. So I see that 1 falls under the hundredths place value, so that means that I need to underline that number. So I underline number 1. And then I look at the neighbor on my right after the 1, and it's 7. So I want to circle that. And then I check. So I located the neighbor number next door, which was 7. On the right, I circled it, and then I want to check where the neighbor number falls under the rounding coaster. So where does my neighbor number, which is the number 7, falls on my rounding coaster? So I look on my left. The numbers that fall on the left is 1 to 4. 7 doesn't belong there. So I go to the next side of the rounding coaster and I see the numbers between 5 to 9. And I can see that the 7 falls on the right side. I can see that the 7 falls, on the left side of my roundings coaster. Right here. It falls on the right side of my rounding coaster. All right, so next I go to the last step. So remember that the neighbor number will determine what happens to the number we are rounding. So the last step, it says, if the neighbor number is 5 or greater, add 1 more to the number you are rounding. Oh, this looks right. So that means that 7, because it's 5 and greater, the number I'm rounding, which is 1, will go up by 1. It will be raised by 1. So this number, decimal 417, will end up being decimal 42. And that's my answer, decimal 42, which is also read as 42 hundredths. So how did we get to decimal 42? Okay, so we first looked at the question. They wanted us to round this number, decimal 417, to the nearest hundredth. So I needed to find out what is the number we are rounding. So I placed my number on the decimal place value chart, and then I realized that my 1 is my hundredths value, so that's the number I'm rounding up, and the thousandths value, which is the 7, it's the neighbor number. So I underlined the number that I need to round, and then I located my neighbor number, which is next door's, and I see that it's 7. Then I check where that neighbor number falls under the rounding coaster, and I see that it rounds on the roller coaster on the left between the numbers 5 and 9. And then I look at the last step, the last rule. If the neighbor number is 5 or greater, add 1 more to that number you are rounding. I see that 7, it's 5, if it's 5 and greater, so that means that the number that I'm rounding, in this case is 1, has to go up by 1. So then the final answer will be decimal 42.